Nikki, thank you so much. Looking forward to getting qualifying for round 11 underway then here in Sanya, the southernmost tip of China, and what a place to go racing for our first time here in 7 years. Let's take a closer look though at this circuit then. A proper old school Formula E track, anti-clockwise, 2.5 kilometres, 12 turns in total, and they all come at you in a very fast succession, especially in that first sector. A series of left-handers to begin the lap, a short straight and the run down into turn 4 where attack mode is activated for the drivers. Be careful with the wall on the re-entry through into there. Turn 6 and 7 where we saw some drama in FP2 between Roland and Da Costa. Then a run down this long back straight into the hairpin of turn 9, and a few drivers have come a cropper in the escape zone down there as well. Keep an eye out for that in qualifying, and then a couple of corners to complete the lap into turns 11 and 12. Going to be hugely excited to see what will happen, especially in that final sector as well. I imagine traffic will be an important factor here in the group stages of qualifying. So Group A up first of all. Welcome along to Formula E if you're joining us for the first time, whether it's the early hours of the morning or whether you're staying up late into the night. We really do appreciate your company and thank you so much for joining us. So 2 group stages of qualifying then, 10 drivers out in each of them. Only 4 will progress forwards into the dual stages. Then we'll have the quarterfinals, the semi-finals, and then the finals and the fight for pole position. Now, James Rossiter, if we look at where things are after qualifying, after FP2 rather, going into qualifying, it looks as though the Mahindras and the Porsches are on good form. However, in Group A in particular, as we now have a look at this lineup, you've got Edo Mortara who's out in this one, and I'm having a look at some of the other drivers that I think could make it through. You've got Felipe Drugovich in there as well. Are there any sort of others that you think have got the potential to progress forwards that are sticking out?
I think the guy that really needs to progress in this session is Mitch Evans, current championship leader. He's really struggled in qualifying so far this year. Only 3 times I think he's made it to the duels. So he needs a good session. It's really important for him. And this group does seem a little bit easier compared to Group B.
Yeah, it has been out-qualified on quite a few occasions by his teammate Antonio Felix da Costa, has Mitch Evans, so he'll be hoping for some more forward progression. Did qualify inside the top 10 in both occasions, made it into the duels in Monaco last time that we were out racing, so he'll be hoping to continue that form here today. But if you look at where he was at the end of FP2 this morning, it was only P9 for the Jaguar driver, so a little bit of work to do to try and unlock some pace and performance here, Albie.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this session's going to be pretty tricky with regards to traffic. Based on what we've heard on the radios, there's a few different strategies that can happen in qualifying with single cool laps, double cool laps, single build laps, double build laps. There's a little bit of variety. And as you can see, only 3 cars are on track at the moment. So there's definitely some differing run plans here. So traffic is going to be a problem.
The other unknown for them, a lot of them have taken the new set of tyres for this qualifying session. They used one set throughout yesterday's practice session, this morning's practice session, so there's a bit of an unknown in there as well.
Absolutely, especially with new tyres, you're expecting that added bit of grip. But again, because they've not used to it, again, the braking references and things like that, look for their second push lap to be better than their first push lap.
You can see the circuit has been reprofiled and resurfaced in some areas in particular as well. You can see where the rubber's been laid down as we come through the final corner into there as well. We have seen a few drivers going a little bit wide into there and also into turn 9 as well. Traffic, we think, is going to be an important factor in this qualifying session as well. That first sector, as you can see, is a series of long left-handers, but also coming up very, very quickly, one after another. So if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, especially towards the end of the session, you could be in struggle town.
The plan is out, double prep, push, double cool, push.
So 2 prep laps then, onto 1 push lap, a couple of cool laps and then another push lap. So it's very hot here in Sanya, as you can imagine, 33, 34 degrees air temperature, but about 80% humidity as well. So drivers and teams are having to manage the tyres over the course of the practice sessions, but also especially here in the qualifying sessions. Keeping them in the right operating window is the most important thing, and this of course is, I imagine, one of the hardest parts of the weekend to do it with the pressure of qualifying.
It's super difficult. You can see this track from this onboard shot, great onboard shot there. You can see how bumpy it was through that fast turn 11, that right-hander towards the end of the lap, where the steering wheel moving around in Nick Cassidy's hands. No power steering in these cars, of course.
in the Citroen Racing Garage at the moment. You see Cyril Blazer on the right hand side. Normally he's got a white shirt on, but it's so warm here as well. He's just trying to keep as cool as possible. So just the t-shirt that he's donning today. It's not only the drivers that are struggling with the temperatures, also in the pit box, as you can see. Here's Lucas de Grassi, bit of housekeeping to do for him. 40 place grid penalty he's got for changing the gearbox and the inverter after Monaco. So that means that he'll be starting at the back of the grid, as a matter of fact, for this weekend. There's quite a few other penalties, but all of those drivers that have got subsequent penalties are out in Group B, aside from Taylor Barnard, who has got a 10 place penalty. That's for contact with Norman Nato, the last time out in Monaco as well.
So he'll start 30 place in front of Lucas.
Absolutely, yeah. Lucas is in Beijing, and he's a little bit further forward, a little bit further down south for Taylor Barnard. See how he gets on here this weekend. Good pace he actually had in the second free practice session this morning, though. 8th fastest for him in the DS Penske machine, and they've had a struggling season so far, down in second to last in the teams championship. Though we know that the drivers have had the pace, the potential just hasn't really been unlocked for one reason or another when it comes down to the ultimate race results. Sometimes they've been involved in incidents that they shouldn't have been involved in. Other times they've fallen foul to misfortune. It's been a bit of a mixed bag, but now in this second half of the season they really need to start delivering those results, especially given the fact that Penske's future in Formula E at this particular point isn't secured. DS are going to be pulling out of the championship. That name will disappear from Formula E at the end of season 12, and we're still awaiting confirmation as to whether Penske as a team will be continuing further forward. So there's a possibility that Gunther and Barnard might need to go shopping for a drive.
There is, but Taylor Barnard, I think, will be on a very short list of most teams on this grid. He's an exceptional young man, incredibly fast driver. But yeah, he's really struggled to convert the good qualifying, good one-lap pace into race results so far this year. And yeah, it doesn't look like they're going to solve that anytime soon.
So talk to me about run plans in this session then, Albie. 10 minutes, 5 minutes now to go at this point. So how are the teams and drivers going to be tackling this one?
So it looks like definitely a single build or double build. Looks like de Grassi's already on a push lap. But yeah, definitely the cooling the surface temperatures during the session, single cool, double cool, that's going to be the trick, really.
Bit of traffic for de Grassi to contend with here in this final sector as well. The Nissan just in front of him there of Norman Nato, just slightly balking him through those final couple of corners. De Grassi still top of the times at the moment, a 109.722. That's a 300 kilowatt lap, of course, as we have here in these group stages of qualifying. To give you an idea of where we were in the ultimate pace this morning with the 350 kilowatt laps, we were down in the low 1 minute 5 seconds. So expect times to be about 1.5 seconds slower than that when all is said and done here, and a lot of activity now out on track in these final 4 minutes of this session.
It's a really important moment now to get a good banker lap in. So to get a lap in sort of 1 minute 7, 1 minute 7.5 really should be the target for most of the drivers right now, and then be able to cool their tyres down and go for that ultimate attack at the end of the session.
Yeah, they're going to be hoping to try and get, as you say, that one flying lap in at the very end of the session. It could be a case of last driver across the line, but you can see the timing screens there lighting up as the drivers get the pace and performance now out of the cars. As you ride on board there with Nick Cassidy from that nose cam, you can really see how bumpy it is going through turn 11 into turn 12 for Cassidy. Had a shocker of a time in FP2 this morning, does go to the top of the pile with the first sort of proper lap time that we've seen from him in 300 kilowatts with a 107.535, but that's only bettered by Felipe Drogovic a few moments later. 13 thousandths of a second quicker the Brazilian driver goes. Eder Mortara, he's been on great form so far this weekend. He's just building himself up for a flyer then here.
What should I do next lap? Push. We need to push and then a cool.
There's a risk as well, isn't it, when you take, if you wait until later on in the session, 3 minutes to go on the clock, if you don't get a banker lap time in now and there's a yellow flag or worse, a red flag at the end of it, that could be your qualifying session done with only one chance to do it.
Exactly, Tom, you're right, and that's why it's so important that Felipe Drogovic and Nick Cassidy have got their banker laps in. They can now do their double cool, and then they can really put everything on the line for that final push up. Eder Mortara actually has a little bit of pressure on him now to get a lap in.
Or should we go for the last cool? For the last push, sorry. Just in case of a red flag, we need to push on the next lap.
Yeah, right on cue, no doubt about it there for Mortara.
Yeah, so what's happened there, Edo on his first push lap, he's made a mistake and backed out of it. So now he's off sequence with his primary run plan.
And there's the yellow flag that we're talking about. It's down at turn 9 as well, so I don't think it'll affect Mortara, but it might affect some other drivers who are on flyers at the moment, including Mitch Evans, who's just through the first sector. Here's Mortara, goes up to P3. There is Mitch Evans.
He hit the wall quite hard on the exit of that final corner with the rear right, Mortara.
Right, okay, so let's wait and see whether there's any damage to come from that. Yellow flag has now gone away. lead. Here is Mitch Evans, though. P9 for him as it stands. 2.5 minutes just under now left on the clock through turn 11. And he needs to get this time on the board here, doesn't he, here, Mitch Evans?
This time's nowhere near fast enough for Mitch.
No, he's backed out, hasn't he? He's had to.
Yeah, let's complete the lap anyway. We still need to take cool lap before the next push just to stay in sequence.
So this is the risk, isn't it? This is now one flying lap, and for Mitch Evans, it's all he's going to get at the end of this session as a result of that yellow flag, meaning he had to back out from that flyer.
Yeah, it's where you cannot have complacency in this championship. I mean, look, there's less than a tenth covering the top 4 that are going to advance through to the next step.
And it was Marty that went off down at turn 9. Well, did somebody else follow him off in sympathy there as well? I thought I just saw...
Dragovic.
Yeah, and he's doing a 3-point, doing the Austin Powers strategy to try and get this thing turned around here now, isn't he? Forwards, backwards, left, right, upwards and downwards, just to try and get it rotated round.
He needs to take a lesson from Dan Tickton and have to spin that around.
Yeah. A heavy right foot generally seems to be the solution, which helps. Let's have a look at it. It's quite bumpy into the braking zone of turn 9 then here. No obvious locking from the front, but just a bit too late on the brakes and unfortunately ran out of room to use it.
At least he didn't drive into the wall.
Yeah, Norman Natto did that yesterday in FP1. Thankfully, no such bother there for him. Russell O'Hagan just looking a little bit pensive in the Cupra Kiro garage at the moment.
So 1 minute to go. Massive pressure now. It's so tight. The top 4 only going to make it through to the duels. Huge pressure at this moment for the drivers. 18 thousandths of a second separating those drivers as well. You can see the dual cut-off time as it stands for now, a 107.553. The fastest time in this session, a 107.535. So incredibly tight, and it's only the first group stages of qualifying, so drivers are now going to be building themselves up, including Mortara, who is on the bubble. You can see he's on a flyer then here. This first sector has to be strong for the Swiss driver. We know the Mahindra's got pace. We've seen it from Mortara over the course of this season and especially this weekend, but at the moment he is in the risky position of being cut out of qualifying before his time is really gone. First sector, it's okay, it's matched what he's done so far. It's okay, but it's not brilliant, is it, Tom? And everyone is on a quick first sector right now. Taylor Barnard faster than anybody at the moment.
Yeah, personal best for Barnard in that first sector in the DS Penske. Again, he could do with a strong result for Taylor Barnard. He will be going back on the grid, though, by 10 places, just to remind you, for that contact he had with Natto last time out in Monaco. Right, checker flag then is out. It's now or never time here for Mortara. Again, not bad in the second sector. It's matched what he's done so far, but it's not lighting up the timing screens. It's not giving him the security that he's going to need. Through the penultimate turn we go, into the final corner of turn 12, and Barnard could be set to upset Mortara's party. Mortara across the line fails to improve at the end of the session. What about Norman Natto? Personal best for him in sector 2 goes P5, not enough to go through into the duels. Is Barnard going to move his way up? He is. Taylor Barnard is through into the duels for DS Penske, knocks out Eduardo Mortara, pushes Cassidy onto the bubble as well. Buemi goes through into P4 for that matter. Also in the Envision, what about Mitch Evans then? Out of the final turn, he goes into P2, pushes out Buemi now. Dragovic on the bubble. Here he is, the Brazilian driver, through the final corner. He goes across the line and he manages to make an improvement at the end of this session. Just Muller and De Grassi to go. Muller can't do it. P8 for him. De Grassi, we know he's got that penalty and he qualifies in P10. But very pensive times there. And the big upset, the big news is that Eduardo Mortara is out of qualifying here in Group A. The second best qualifier of the season so far will go no further here this afternoon.
I'm shocked. I mean, we knew it was going to be tight, but Mortara not making it through. He's been so fast this morning. That's a big upset. And Mitch Evans making it in there, that's a huge step forwards towards him fighting for this championship.
Yeah, hugely important there. So Buemi also just missing out after improving at the end of that session. What can we take from that one there, Albie? Any particular highlights that you noticed?
Yeah, so a couple different things. So with Evans, he actually did 3 build laps, which is definitely a lot more than the other teams. But that said, they were able to put the tires in the right place, long cool lap, and then able to deliver on the final lap. With Barnard, he actually went in, swapped the tires left to right, and then went back out.
So lots of strategies coming along the way here in Group A. Group B along the way in a couple of moments' time as well. And there's, of course, another 10 drivers, all from different teams, that will be going out in a few moments' time. And that's going to be interesting for them to see what they'll have learned from Group A going into Group B and how are they going to be able to apply that knowledge into that session.
Well, I think we need to be a bit more aggressive on the tires. I was perfectly on target with the temps, but I just feel like they need to be woken up a bit more.
Such a shame for Nico Müller. That's going to be his worst starting position of the season, actually, for that matter. Previous to that, it was P16 on the grid in Jeddah. Right, let's get confirmation of the results from Group A then. So, Dragovic, Barnard, Evans and Cassidy are your 4 drivers that will progress forwards. We will say goodbye to Sebastian Buemi, crucially to Eduardo Mortara in the Mahindra. So much pace they had in 350 kilowatts, but ultimately in the 300 kilowatts, they were 2/100ths of a second away, which denied them the opportunity. Marty, as well as Müller and the following drivers, also failing to make the cut here as well. So big upsets in this Group A qualifying session, and Mahindra are going to have to make sure that they don't repeat the same mistakes in Group B. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because we saw that Mortara was on that flying lap initially. He made that mistake. Do you think that was ultimately what cost him?
Yes, the lap that he was talking about aborting, he was speaking to his engineer in that lap that he was his fastest lap of the session. So that's quite disappointing for him. However, one team player in that one, Nico Müller, he didn't have a good session, but giving that feedback to Porsche, to Pascal Wehrlein, that crucial information saying that the tyres need to be woken up a bit more, that's something that Porsche can really apply and make sure that Pascal has the best chance possible in this next session.
Well, the driver who started on pole position has not won in the last 9 races of Formula E, ever since Sao Paulo, actually, at the start of the season. So we'll see whether that form book continues throughout 2026. I mean, we know that qualifying, there's a big emphasis on it. It's a very narrow, very old school Formula E circuit, this one, and we're expecting it to be, let's be fair, incident packed is probably the politest way of putting it, going into the E-Prix this afternoon. So a good qualifying position to try and stay out of that drama in the mid-pack will be absolutely critical. Nico Müller makes his way down the pit lane then after failing to progress forwards for the Porsche team from qualifying in Group A then here. Group B qualifying though along the way here now in the sunshine in Sanya. And let's see how this one is going to work out for the drivers. It's going to be interesting. Oliver Rowland with Pascal Wehrlein in the mix here for this one, as well as Antonio Felix da Costa, Jake Dennis, who was quick in practice this morning, Nick de Vries, Le Mans 24-hour winner now, as well as Joel Eriksson, Dan Ticktum, Jean-Eric Verne, Maximilian Günther, and then Zane Maloney are your 10 drivers. So we're out in Group B then as the drivers filter out onto the circuit. Now, I'm excited to see this because I can't remember the last time we had a session where the 10 teams that were in Group A were different to Group B.
Yeah, let's not go too late. I prefer 3, yeah. Okay. But we're still, I mean, people are doing just 2 push laps. Okay. Should we then react to the green light, yeah? Okay.
And just to clarify what I mean by that is, I mean, there's in no teams had 2 cars out in both Group A or indeed Group B. So in theory, they can apply what they learned on one side of the garage in Group A to the other side in Group B.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, having that teammate sort of feedback, even for the drivers, is massively important. Other than just the run planning, just the feel for where the car is, what the track is like. So that information would have gone to all the cars in the second group. Interestingly, for Porsche, they're actually the only teams that have done 3 push laps, which looks like the run plan that Pascal's going to be on now. So they're doing out double build and then push cool push. So that's quite interesting.
Didn't work out so well for Nico Müller. They did it in that previous session, so I hope that they'd learned from that, and I hope that Pascal goes for a slightly different approach, because he really needs to make it through if he's going to fight back really from the poor weekend that they had in Monaco.
It's that banker lap time that you need to get in. That's the most crucial thing, isn't it, really, here, to make sure that you've got that time on the board. And as we say, ultimately that's what cost Eduardo Mortara.
Well, you also saw Cassidy, who struggled in the practice sessions. He got a good banker lap in, and that really gave him the confidence to push to the absolute limit, and he made it in the Citroen, where he's been languishing down in sort of 17th in the free practice session.
The last thing you need is to put that pressure on yourself, and then you get a little bit of traffic, and that's off-putting, and it's just too much for the drivers.
I do find it amazing, though, how they all managed to find the same piece of asphalt.
Every time. Every time. We go on track and it's like, hang on, you've got 2.5 kilometres here to play with, lads, but for some reason they all end up in the same sort of 500 metres of each other, don't they?
Yeah, they all get excited.
I'm just seeing a notice coming up on our timing screen. Norman Natto under investigation for a technical infraction.
Okay, so we are out, triple build, push, cool, push. Let's work on the tyres and brakes, overtake if you need to.
So 3 build laps there. Presumably they've had a bit of feedback on Mitch Evans' side of the garage to say this is what we reckon is probably the best run plan. If you look at Antonio Felix da Costa's qualifying results over this season, he's had 1 front row start and a further 3 top 3 starts. Hasn't had a pole position so far though in season 12, but has made it to the duels on 8 occasions, whereas his teammate Mitch Evans only on 3 prior to this weekend. Make that of course now 4 as a result of him making it through Group A a couple of minutes ago. So this is on board with Oliver Rowland through turns 6 and 7. This is where we saw him having a bit of an incident with da Costa actually in FP2 this morning. It was a bit of a case of 2 drivers converging into one space that wasn't really there. Speaking of spaces that weren't really there, you can see Rowland just sort of half-inching his way alongside Jake Dennis, coming down this back straight into turn 9.
That gets rather tasty there. And it does surprise me that one of them hasn't just decided to slow down and drop back into the space sort of 10 seconds behind, and then run your own pace to warm up your tyres, because here you're a bit at the mercy of the others. If one of them slows down, you all have to slow down. So
I can understand it as well, like if we were at a circuit where tyre temperature was absolutely critical, if the track and the air temperature was lower, but obviously there's a lot of emphasis this weekend on trying to keep those tyres cooler really more than anything, so you don't have to go out necessarily and push so hard on those out laps.
I think this is something we're going to have to get Alexa to ask them all after the session, why they all decided to go out at the same time.
Well, we'll see whether it comes back to bite them in the backside. That's going to be the crucial point of it here, isn't it, really? 6 minutes to go in this session. No banker lap times in as such. Still drivers on these build laps trying to get heat into the tyres, heat into the brakes, get everything in the right operating window. And now starting to see Max Günther actually still in the pit lane, you just noticed on the timing screen there as well, Audi.
Yeah, so this is something that we discussed earlier on in the day, where you take the left side tyres and you swap them to the right side. So you have here most of the corners, in fact 10 of them, turn left, 2 of them turn right. So you're going to heat up one side of the tyre, or one side of the car much quicker than the other side. So by doing that out lap, Max could then come in, swap his tyres from left to right, and that gives you a more even temperature spread between the left tyres and the right tyres on the car. And that's what Taylor Barnard utilised to really jump up the timing screens in that first Group A session.
Yeah, so Günther, what he's done, he's gone out, he's done a couple of build laps, you know, as you say, got some core temperatures, some surface temperatures to the tyres, come back into the garage, they've changed it over, and they're going to presumably then just get, one, maybe a couple of flying laps in, depending on when they send him out?
So Taylor was able to get 2 flying laps. Definitely his second one was much quicker, but it's an interesting tactic to do, because the last thing you want is the tires are ready on the right side but not ready on the left, but then by the time the left side tires are ready, the right hand side tires are overcooked. So it's not that easy.
A little bit of housekeeping just to remind you as well. Max Günther has a 3-place grid penalty for overspeeding under the safety car in Monaco, and also you've got Pepe Marti, 5-place grid penalty for him for contact with Nick Cassidy last time out in Monaco as well. So 4 drivers with penalties. Right, Verline, first driver over the line to set a representative time, a 1:07.516.
That's a great banker lap right there. That's going to give him the confidence to do his cool down laps, think about where he can maybe make those extra couple of tenths to try to get close to that 7.3 that we saw in Group A, and try to make sure that he's top of the group.
Ollie Rowland, fresh off the back of dual appearance in Monaco last time out, would love to make it 2 from 2, bit sideways though, through turn 11, won't be helping his cause. Maybe just overheating the tyres coming through that final sector. Let's see what it does and affects his lap time. Yeah, you can see he's 0.3 of a second away, which, given the margins that we saw in Group A a few minutes ago, it's not going to be anywhere near close enough.
No, indeed. Jake Dennis there, another good banker lap as well.
De Vries goes up into 3rd place.
You want like a 7.5, don't you? 1 minute 7.5 as a banker, that feels like a good place to be.
Yeah, as we say, we always refer to it in commentary, but the margins are indeed very tight, especially so here in Sanya. A very compact lap, of course, with it just being 2.5 kilometres and 12 corners, so therefore the gaps are reduced compared to maybe a longer circuit, like, for example, when we were out in Monaco. Right, Dan Tickton had a couple of off-track excursions in FP2 this morning, needs to get a strong result on the board, not only for himself and for his challenges this weekend, but also in terms of securing himself a race drive for season 13 and beyond. We understand his place is not necessarily that secure at the Cupra team. Down into turn 9 we go, out of the corner. Personal best for him in Sector 1. What's it like in Sector 2? Fastest overall, so that's a bit more like it for Dan Tickton. We know the Porsche powertrain is working quite nicely. Hopefully, he's got enough tyre left underneath him to get the potential out of that car and catapult himself with a good banker lap time, with just under 3 minutes now remaining of this session. Out of the final turn we go for Dan Tickton, over the line, a 1:07.516. 2.5 it is for him, just 6/100ths of a second behind Pascal Wehrlein.
It's so close again, Tom.
Brilliant. I'm loving this. Da Costa, again, we know the Jaguar hasn't been performing as well as they would like in practice trim. What about in qualifying? It's only P7 so far. 10th of a second away, though. That's how big the gap is between making it and not.
He lost half a second in Sector 2. So it must have been a big mistake there. We saw him many times running deep at turn 9 at the hairpin. So perhaps a little bit of time lost there for him.
Yeah, Wehrlein riding the crest of a wave. Porsche, of course, didn't race here when we were last in Sanya back in 2019 in Season 5. They weren't part of Formula E then, so they're coming into this one completely blind with no data. But clearly, they've been doing the work on the sim and getting some data from the other teams like Andretti, which are also running the Porsche powertrains. It's working and paying dividends for them. Wehrlein currently fastest and improves again. 2/100ths of a second in his pocket with just under 2 minutes now remaining. He's had a wry smile on the face of team principal Florian Modlinger. He knows that there's pace potential that's being delivered here.
That might be a smile too early, because I'm not sure that time is going to hold up. It's so close. I think he needs to cool his tyres down and go again. But he's only got one cool, and we know from all the others they're on a double cool.
Okay, then from what we were thinking, surface temp is even more important than normal. So yeah, really work that surface in the last sector. So still P2 at the moment, just sector 1 is the 2.5 tenths.
So one more cool lap and then presumably one more push lap for Dan Ticktum then here. Might get a couple of them. Let's have a look. It looks like he's pushing on here into this at the moment, isn't he? So yeah, he's just trying to... it's obviously an old team radio message then for Dan Ticktum, but a bit of oversteer, and it's already the lap's gone at turn 4, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's going to be difficult. He might be able to get round. In fact, no, he will be able to get round and go again for the next lap. So he just needs to stay calm, cool the surface down. He might get an advantage by being the last one to start a flying lap. However, if there's an incident in front of him, he will not be able to get the opportunity.
Good news for him is he's in a nice bit of clear air as well. He's got no other drivers around him out on track. Let's have a look at it down to turn 4, and you can see it just gets a bit light on the brakes and slides at the rear, and unfortunately that's the lap time gone. So clearly the tyres overheating and crying for mercy. Wehrlein in the pit lane, he's decided that's all he can do in this session. And let's see what about the rest of the drivers then here with their final flying laps now coming in. De Vries is on the bubble. He's gone personal best in Sector 1. Da Costa, who is currently out, has failed to improve in his first sector and is a little bit away from where he really needs to be. But there's a yellow flag out, and whereabouts is it? It's down at turn 4, which is the attack mode zone, and it's Zane Maloney who's come to a stop. So those drivers who needed to make improvements, Da Costa, Roland, Gunther, etc., are all going to be failing to do so if they're in the first sector. Some who are a bit further on might be okay if they've been able to get the first couple of sectors done in good order. Da Costa slower in the first sector than he would like, slides out of the final corner, and it's only P6 for Da Costa. He loses out as we see an improvement there for Nick De Vries. He catapults himself up into P2. Jake Dennis consolidates P4 in the Andretti. Roland now the man on the pressure and on the bubble. At P9 for him as it stands, and it's only 6th place there for the reigning world champion Oliver Roland. Can we see an upset here for anybody else? Gunther's not going to improve. He's half a second away. Ericsson was fastest for him in the first sector, but hasn't really done anything in Sector 2 and stays P5 for now. Verne doesn't look like he's going to upset anything as he comes to the final corner, and he doesn't make an improvement. So the top 4 stays as it was when all is said and done. Wehrlein stays top of the class with De Vries in second, Ticktum in third, and then Jake Dennis in 4th place. So 3 Porsche powertrains through from Group B into the quarterfinals here in Sanya. Well, that was dramatic, and ultimately we didn't see the final stages of it, but we did see a stoppage on track here for Zane Maloney.
Is the front right broken? Question. Rear right. Rear right. Copy.
So problems on the rear right then for Zane Maloney. Sounds like a technical problem for him in the Lola Yamaha Apt machine. Let's have a look and see if we can work out what happened. Or a wall. Yeah, it was a wall. An incident with the wall on the exit of turn 3. And unfortunately for Zane Maloney, that's an end to his session. You can see smoke pouring off the back of that car. We only saw it once it had come to a stop. And clearly some visible damage. Yeah, he was wide going through turn 1, already fighting with the car into turn 2, and he didn't look happy and just clapped the ball on the exit. And unfortunately for the Barbadian driver, who's shown some really strong potential over the last couple of weekends, getting into the duels in Berlin in particular, it unfortunately is going to be an early end to his weekend, and acting team principal Espinosa will be disappointed. Group B classification then ends with Pascal Wehrlein heading Nick de Vries, Dan Ticktum and Jake Dennis. We say goodbye to Joel Eriksson, to the reigning champ Oliver Rowland, as well as Antonio Felix da Costa in the second of the Jaguars, Vern Gunther and of course Zane Maloney, all missing out, and a bit of repair work to do for the Lola team prior to the E-Prix here this afternoon. 8/100ths of a second separating 4 drivers at the top of the order. Given that the margins were even tighter in Group A a couple of minutes ago, I think that sets us up an absolute treat going into the duels. What do you reckon?
It does indeed, and it's back to the form that we saw in practice with Porsche and Mahindra powertrains at the top.
Yeah, I was actually pretty impressed with Dan Ticktum's time because he'd been kind of struggling in free practice 1, free practice 2, so brought it all together. And
he was really lucky actually that he got that lap in, that first lap, because he was the one biggest affected. He was behind the yellow flag exactly at Albi, so after that mistake he couldn't do a second push lap.
I'm really not sure where the 210s in sector 2 are. The first lap, yeah, but the second lap I felt it was good, and on the limit 49 could not break 1 meter later than what I did. Yeah, the last corner just lost it on the rear.
I know on Antonio's first lap he was missing time out of 6-7, getting the power down before the back straight, so I'm not sure about the second lap.
Yeah, the first one was the one that counted for him, wasn't it? He was super fast in sector 1, and then, I mean, fastest of anybody in sector 1, and then yeah, he lost a huge amount of time in the second sector on that first push lap. He did improve on his second push lap, but not enough to make it through.
It's never good when a driver comes back and says, I don't know where we can find that time.
I don't know. I'd be more worried if he came back and said, I know where to find it, I couldn't get it. So I'm always happy when a driver comes in and says, I don't know where to find it, because the engineering team can help him find it. But yeah, if he knew where it was and he left it on the table, that's more worrying qualifying.
So a bit of recovery work going on here for Zane Maloney as he trundles back to the pit lane. Thankfully for him, it's not too far of a walk, especially in a race suit and Nomex fireproof clothing and so on and so forth.
Short walk to his ice bath.
Yeah, he'll be needing that after this one. As you see, Maximilian Günther making his way down the pit lane, as well as Joel Eriksson. There's a strong end to the session there for Joel Eriksson in the Envision, but ultimately not enough to see him move forwards and into the duels. And likewise, Maximilian Günther, who has that 3-place penalty for overspeeding under the safety car last time out in Monaco, means that, again, another challenging weekend so far for that outfit, especially on the other side of the garage, with Barnard having a 10-place penalty after contact with Norman Nato in the most recent race. Ollie Rowland then makes his way down into the Weybridge area, and he'll be disappointed with that, especially given the emphasis on qualifying at this very tight and technical street circuit here in Sanya. Dual stages along the way though, with the quarterfinals up first. Thank you very much indeed, Nikki. It is so hot down on the ground, even the palm trees are looking for shade here in Sanya. Well, let's see what happens then with quarterfinal 1. Jaguar TCS Racing's Mitch Evans and DS Penske's Taylor Barnard out on track. A third successive duel appearance for Mitch Evans, having only made the duels once in the rest of the season prior to this run. Meanwhile, Taylor Barnard is in the duels for the 6th time in 11 attempts this season, but he's lost the quarterfinal duels 3 times compared to 2 wins. So let's wait and see how he gets on here today. Green light about to come on at the end of pit lane, so we will up the power from 300 to 350 kilowatts, and we go into all-wheel drive as well as Mitch Evans, your championship leader, filters out onto the circuit, and pensive face is there for Ian James. I have to say, given the pace that we saw in practice this morning, I'm really surprised that Mitch Evans managed to make it through, but pleasantly surprised for that matter as well, because he knows, obviously, to consolidate that championship lead, that a strong performance in qualifying is what's needed.
Yeah, it was a great lap from him in the previous session, but it's completely reset. 350 kilowatts, all-wheel drive active. He's got to go into the unknown now, and he was struggling with this setting. I would say more in the free practice session than in the 300 kilowatt setting. So, and Taylor Barnard, he was absolutely flying, I think, at the end of free practice too, anyway.
He was. Just a reminder for Taylor Barnard, he does have a 10-place grid penalty after contact with Norman Nato in round 10 as well. So wherever he qualifies on the grid, he will go back 10 places. But that does mean he can still get through into the finals and still take the 3 points of pole position. It just means he'll be starting back in 11th on the grid if that happens.
Yeah, he still has to do the best possible job he can, and he'll take the penalty on the chin, and hopefully he'll start 10th.
So, one flying lap then. We've had a build lap then for Mitch Evans as he exits the final corner of turn 12, comes across the timing line, now of course in all-wheel drive, so don't expect too many sideways moments. Has he got those tyres in the best operating window? And what can Taylor Barnard do as well through the first couple of corners? They come along in such quick succession. Times expected to be about 1.5 to 2 seconds faster, according to Google Gemini here in this session. Do you agree with that, Albie?
With the temperatures, 1.5 seconds is pretty sensible. I think 2 might be asking a bit much, but let's see.
So through the first sector, 26.4 is what Mitch Evans has been able to do. What about Taylor Barnard then? Can he respond to that? We're looking at Mitch Evans and then of course Taylor Barnard in the bottom right hand corner of your screen as it stands for now. Barnard with a little bit of an advantage through the first couple of corners. We'll get a proper representation though as he comes through the end of that first sector, and he's up by just under 0.5 of a second. Doesn't sound like much. Around a short lap here like Sanya, that's not a bad advantage to start your lap with at all. Evans then making his way through into turn 11. That'll be turn 1 for the race because the start and finish line are offset here at the Sanya circuit. Through the final corner then for Evans, and what can he put through in that Jaguar machine? Over the line he goes. It's a 1:05.652, so not bad at all for him. Barnard's lost a bit of time in the second sector after having had the advantage, but you can see he's catching in these final couple of corners, so if he can keep it neat and tidy and continue on the same trajectory, he might be able to knock out the championship leader. Out of the final corner we go then for Taylor Barnard, and it's not enough. 1,000th of a second in it. What a way to start the quarterfinals then here. And Mitch Evans does manage to progress through by quite literally the smallest of margins here in Sanya.
That's unbelievable. I'm lost for words, Tom.
Well, that is as bad and close as it gets here in Formula E qualifying. I'd love to see a side-by-side comparison of those laps.
Well done, mate. 1,000th of a second. We are through to the semi-finals.
Good start to life for Jaguar and for Phil Charles and for the DS Penske team. That's a disappointing conclusion to them because they've of course been hoping to get as far up the order as they can to try and consolidate their losses with that 10-place penalty. Right, straight over to Group B. Nick Cassidy versus Felipe Drugovich then. First time we've seen these two drivers going head-to-head this season. Cassidy, though, has struggled so far this year in the qualifying sessions.
He was pushing a lot on that outlap.
Well, let's see whether it will deliver a strong lap time as he exits through that first corner. We know that Citroen has not been the quickest machine in terms of race trim over the course of this year, but over the last couple of weekends in qualifying, as I say, in Monaco, not particularly brilliant. Actually, though, in Berlin, he was right up the sharper end of the field. Drugovich, meanwhile, fresh off the back of his debut podium in Formula E in Monaco, last time out as well. He'll be riding the crest of a wave of confidence here. First sector, 26.6 for Nick Cassidy. What can Dragovic do in response to that? Nearly 0.2 of a second he's picked up already through the first couple of corners. We know that Porsche powertrain is looking very handy indeed around here, whilst the Stellantis powered cars have really been struggling, and 0.3 of a second in his pocket already. That's a sizable margin to start the lap here for Felipe.
That's a really fast first sector from him. He was looking very strong throughout all the practice sessions in 350 kilowatts, and he's got so much confidence from that Monaco podium.
Yeah, it's brilliant to see, actually, given that he was so down in the doldrums after Berlin. We had him on the team radio saying, I don't know how to drive, I don't know what's going on. Fast forward a couple of weeks later, and he was on the podium on the streets of Monte Carlo. Right, 105.9 then for Nick Cassidy, but I think Felipe Dragovic is going to absolutely walk this one here. He's nearly 0.3 of a second in his pocket and building it further still into these final couple of corners. Across the line we go then for Dragovic. Nearly 0.4 of a second eventually is what he has. A 105.571 for the Brazilian driver. So Andretti move forward into the semi-finals then on one side of the garage.
Is this a good moment to mention that Albi might be a bit off compared to Google?
What do you reckon?
Well, Google said 2 seconds.
They said 2 seconds.
1.9.
1.7, 1.9?
Roughly.
There we go.
Give or take. I mean, 0.2 of a second doesn't sound like a lot, but here it seems like
the challenge is on.
Exactly.
My money's on Google.
What was your money on for the next one then, between Dan Ticktum and Nick de Vries?
I'm going to go with Dan Ticktum. I think he can pull some spectacular laps out in qualifying.
Albie?
I'm going to go with Nick de Vries.
Interesting. Right, split opinions here in the commentary box. I'm going to sit on the fence, because I can. Right, Nick de Vries then, Le Mans 24-hour winner with Dan Ticktum, the man who was on pole position successively in races in Monaco. And you can see Ticktum there making his way through the final couple of corners as the pensive faces in the garages will watch on as they look forward to seeing who is going to make it through into the second of the semi-finals then here for these drivers. Through turn one we go for Dan Ticktum, that Porsche powertrain singing like a canary here this weekend at Sanya. And let's see whether the score is going to be on the door here for Dan Ticktum. Nick de Vries making his way through as well in that Mahindra machine. We know there's pace and potential. We saw it in the practice sessions. In qualifying, though, for Ede Mortara, he said the feeling was there and he wasn't quite sure what it was that was missing ultimately for him. A 26.3 in Sector 1 for Dan Ticktum, though. That's pretty much on par with what we saw from Felipe Dragovic a couple of moments ago.
Yeah, great start to the lap for Dan.
So down in towards turn 9 we go for Dan Ticktum then. De Vries just making his way through turns 6 and 7. About 0.5 of a second shy is De Vries through that first sector. Let's see whether Mahindra can build back some pace and try and pick up the advantage. Actually losing a little bit as we come in towards sector 2. Ticktum is absolutely on it here as he makes his way through into the final corner then. Out of turn 12, across the line, a 105.621 for Dan Ticktum. That's pretty much where he wanted to be. Not quite the quickest lap that we've seen so far. Not bettering Felipe Dragovic's attempt from a couple of moments ago, but De Vries looking like he's catching here in this final couple of sectors then. Can he manage to build back the advantage and now qualify Dan Ticktum? Not quite enough. 4/100ths of a second away as Dan Ticktum and Cupra Kiro will go through into the semi-finals.
I'll take that win. Thanks, Albie.
So will Dan Ticktum, I think, as well.
That was a brilliant lap. I mean, Albie touched on it. He looked like Dan was struggling in the practice sessions, both yesterday and this morning. And clearly he and the team have worked quite hard and done a great job together as a combination to get this performance out of the car.
He's a proper street circuit specialist, isn't he, Dan Ticktum? He really seems to have what it takes over that one lap pace, doesn't he?
Here's one for you, Tom. How many people have done 3 poles in a row? Because Dan's got a chance.
I will find out and I will get back to you in due course. In other words, I'll have a look at my notes. Right, quarter-final 4, Jake Dennis for Andretti. Pascal Wehrlein going head-to-head. The old rivals then facing off once again here in quarter-final 4, both with Porsche powertrains. First time they're in the duels for this man, Jake Dennis, since Jeddah some 6 races ago. He could get both Andrettis into the semi-finals here as well. That would be a very big cause for a smile in the garage for the team principal, Roger Griffiths. Right, let's wait and see if that's a possibility as we look at Jake Dennis harrying that car through the first couple of turns here.
If his car is anything like Felipe Dragovic's, I actually expect Jake Dennis to get this one over Pascal.
Right, so he slowed the laps down then here. Dennis, of course, is in reality a little bit further up the road, but we've got them now side by side, so we can see a proper comparison here between these two drivers and look out for the different sort of mistakes and lines through the corners that they'll be making here. 26.3 in Sector 1, it looks like here for Jake Dennis. Will Pascal Wehrlein, though, be able to respond to that? He's 6/1000ths of a second away, but slightly deep there into turn 6.
It's also important to take the shortest route. You can see Jake able to hold those tight apexes. Great line through 6-7 there for him.
Yeah, you can see that mistake for Verline. It's just cost him here, hasn't it, as well? Oh, and he's gone deep there down into turn 9 also. So the lap's going away here for Pascal Verline. It looks like Dennis, if he can just hold this one together, is going to be comfortably through by about 0.3 of a second over Pascal Verline. Down in towards turn 11 and 12 we go. And I don't think Verline, unless Dennis...
he hit the wall, Dennis.
He did make a mistake. He did hit the wall on the outside of turn 11. Could that be the impetus then for Verline to at least claw something back? Across the line we go. And Dennis, despite that mistake in the penultimate corner, has been able to get the better of his old adversary, Pascal Verline, and go through into the semi. So both of the Andrettis progress forwards into that stage of qualifying for the first time this season. Great lap time there for Jake Dennis, and a great cause for smiles in the Andretti garage. So that'll be along the way. Look at the bumps as the car moves. So did it just unsettle it? That's going through into turn 11, isn't it? And maybe that's what just caused that snap of oversteer.
And it hits the wall.
Let's have a look. Yeah, you can see the car just... It looks unstable, doesn't it, going into there?
Oh, that's a reasonable hit. I'll be impressed if that's going in a straight line for the next session.
Well, we saw that with Pascal Verline, didn't we, in Berlin? And famously, his steering was off by about 20 degrees, and he managed to gather it all up. But you can see how wide he was on the apex of the corner.
Yeah, he was wide already on the entry. The first bump unsettled him. He had to correct it even before he got to the apex. He missed the apex just a little bit on the dusty track. Lucky boy there to get away with that one, Jake.
No, the team's definitely going to have a look at the car and look at the data, just make sure everything's okay with the powertrain, because that is a pretty big hit.
Yeah, but they can't do anything. They can't touch it, they can't change it, they can't change the tyres, they can't do anything for the next duel.
Let's have some team radio.
Messed up turns 11.
Solid, mate. They're solid. Yeah, from what I can see.
T11.
Right, yeah, well done. You made it through.
So presumably they're going to be checking everything on that in-lap in particular, just to make sure that it's driving in a straight line as possible.
But James is right. There's not a lot they can do, but rather know about it than not.
Yeah, true. You don't want to damage the powertrain.
Yeah, so we'll see Pascal Verline going up with Dan Ticktum in a couple of moments' time. Let's have a look at how we got here, though, for the semi-finals and the lineup. So it was Evans and Barnard up in quarterfinal 1 with Cassidy and Drugovic alongside. Then next up, then it was Ticktum and De Vries, Dennis and Verline. The upshot is, in the first of the semi-finals, it'll be Mitch Evans and Felipe Drugovic, and then Dan Ticktum with Jake Dennis. So there's a possibility we could have both Andrettis locking out the front row here, if all goes well for them.
How excited Roger Griffiths will be for that one.
How surprised I think Jaguar are going to be to get to at least a car into the semi-finals, and how delighted Porsche will be to have 3 of their powertrains through at this stage as well.
But none of their works cars.
Very good point. Very good point, yeah.
I'll agree with Albie on that one.
You see the sea blowing here as well, and I'm sure they'll be hoping for a bit of a sea breeze down there. This is the damage we can see on the left-hand side rear tyre for Jake Dennis. A tap into the barrier on the exit of turn 11.
Look, his nan borrowed his car and drove into the curb.
Well, my nan doesn't drive, so I can't really follow that reference, to be honest with you. But, you know, I know what you're saying, though.
But I didn't want to say someone else.
Good point, well, mate. Let's have a look at the damage, just see if we can see. You can see, obviously, yeah, it does look like it's been grollied at Heathrow car park or something, doesn't it? And, well, they can change the tyres, can't they?
You can, yes, you can, but...
The wheel looked okay, to be fair. It's more just sometimes the internal damage that you're worried about, so...
So just looking at this super slow-mo here from Jake Dennis as he tapped the ball in quarter-final 4 a couple of minutes ago.
So the reason why you wouldn't want to change the tyres, because they're all built into the right temperature window, and you only have an out lap and a push lap, and it's so important to keep that, have that continuity as you're putting the car, everything on the limit. You don't want to be changing one tyre.
Well, quarterfinals are all done and dusted. One driver who will not be progressing forwards is Nick Cassidy. I think he'll be happy enough to get through into the duels, but let's actually get his thoughts. He's down in the pit lane talking to Alexa. Good to hear from Taylor Barnard, and also for Nick Cassidy with the tape all over his cap. They're not quite sure what that's all about. Try and figure that one out. Anyway, quarterfinals all done and dusted. Over to the semi-finals then. Felipe Drugovich and Mitch Evans going head-to-head first of all. First time those two drivers will be facing off against one another. Looking forward to seeing how this one is going to work out. Just a reminder, of course, 3 points bagged for pole position here in Sanya, and it will be the two winners of the two semi-finals that will be going onto the front row and trying to bag those 3 points. For Mitch Evans, it could mean that he increases his championship lead, or we could see the likes of Jake Dennis and Dan Tickton trying to increase their points tally, as well as Drugovich. Righto then, semi-final one. Jaguar TCS Racing's Mitch Evans versus Andretti's Felipe Drugovich. Evans in his third semi-final this season, but didn't win the previous two. Felipe Drugovich, as in his last career semi-final, would have been in Miami, and the last time he did that, he won to Antonio Felix da Costa, which of course was another Jaguar driver. So that's a good omen for him, and we know that that Porsche powertrain is working very nicely here. So pit lane about to open then, drivers about to filter out onto the track, and well, I'm curious to see how this one is going to go. Again, the momentum with the Porsche powertrain, as we say, but
I think the momentum with the Andretti car. I think Andretti have set up a phenomenal car. You can see it, both the drivers look super comfortable, very consistent. You heard Jake saying that he left 2 tenths on the table and he still made it through and beat Pascal, so I would want to be driving one of those Andrettis today.
What do you reckon for this one, Albie? What are your predictions or insight?
Yeah, I actually agree with James. That Porsche powertrain, but as you said, both cars into the duels, this deep into the duels, is impressive.
It's getting hotter and hotter as well, and also I imagine the track's getting more and more rubbered in as well as these drivers are pounding around here. So in theory, lap time should be getting maybe a touch faster, do you think?
I think so, but you just need to be able to repeat your lap. You've got the same tyres, you've got the same car, same system, same settings. The goal is to go out there and repeat it. If you can repeat it, normally you're going to be okay.
Two different surface changes there as the drivers making their way down. That was Jake Dennis just coming on that long back straight in towards the hairpin of turn 9, where we've seen so many drivers making mistakes. Here though is Mitch Evans as he will exit his way out of the final corner, and he'll come across the timing line then. So Mitch Evans through into turn 1 in that Jaguar TCS racing machine. Felipe Drugovich a little bit of a way down the road, and let's see whether Drugovich is going to be able to respond to the advances of Mitch Evans. Then there is Drugovich just making his way through that final corner. 26.3 was what we saw on average through that first sector, and let's see whether Evans is going to be anywhere near close to that. He's a 26.291 as a matter of fact, so he's even faster. I think that might even be the fastest first sector time that we've seen so far this weekend.
It is, yeah.
Heck of a gauntlet to lay down then for him. Drugovich with a little snap of oversteer there through turn 1.
Locking the front, super unstable there on the bumps, but manages to get the apex.
Yeah, got the car back in line, didn't he there, Mitch Evans, so that's nicely done for him. I tell you what though, Felipe Drugovich driving like he's left the gas on here. He was even faster in that first sector, down into the 26.2, so good stuff there for the Brazilian driver, and let's see whether he can continue that momentum over the remainder of this lap. Out of the final turn we go for Evans. It's a 1 minute 5.632 for the championship leader then, but is he going to be outclassed and outqualified by the rookie Felipe Drugovich through turn 11? Nearly a tenth of a second the advantage he holds as it stands for now. One more corner to go, just needs to get it hooked up in that Andretti car, which is driving so well. He's lost a bit of time. Out of the final turn he goes though, and it is enough to move through into the final. So job done on one side of the garage for Andretti then. Felipe Drugovich will go through to the fight for pole position.
Wow, what a confidence this young man has carried over from Monaco, from his first podium in his rookie season, bringing that, and to take out Mitch Evans is a massive feat for the young man.
We're at the final, mate. Well done.
So one thing, I was actually listening to both Dennis and Drugovich's radio. They seem to have a really good plan for their drivers in terms of what they're doing on the outlap, how much margin they can take to make sure they don't overheat the tires on the outlap. So I think that's probably one thing that team is doing better than maybe some of the other Porsche powertrains.
Two Britons then, Jake Dennis and Dan Tickton up in semi-final 2. First meeting for these two drivers. Tickton, of course, could clinch a 4th front row start of the season and possibly get himself into the fight for a 3rd successive pole in Formula E. Dennis, though, he's been on good form, and we know that Andretti is working nicely. We've just seen it about 10 seconds ago from Felipe Drugovich on the other side of the garage. Let's see whether Dennis enjoyed his teammate though in the finals. Through sector 1 he goes, looks okay through the first couple of corners. We slowed the laps down though here, so Tictum on the right, Dennis on the left hand side, and low 26s is what we're expecting through that first sector for these two drivers.
Well, a little bit of, he lost the rear end, Dan Tictum, going into turn 4 there, so that might have cost him a little bit of time.
You can see just how much more lock that many had to put on going through the next part of it as well. Coming down in towards that left-hander of turn 6 and 7. Tictum with a slight advantage though in the first sector, just 15 thousandths of a second in his pocket. Not quite as quick as we saw from Felipe Drugovich a couple of moments ago, but Dennis now trying to claw it back here coming into sector 2. Oh, Tictum's deep, he's way too deep, he's straight off down at turn 9. That's the lap gone then for Dan Tictum. Not the first time we've seen him make a mistake this weekend, and that's a big disappointment for the Cupra Kiro team, as unfortunately the potential falls to nothing. He has to pirouette the car around, and Jake Dennis will now know that all he has to do is just run a nice tidy lap time, see what else he can get out of the car, and try and deliver that potential in performance. He'll come out of the final turn with a 105.425, which is absolutely phenomenal time for the British driver, and unfortunately for Dan Tictum, his challenge will come to an end here in the second of the semi-finals.
Here we go then, fastest lap of the weekend for Jake Dennis. And as a team, you don't want to interrupt the driver. Even though the other one's made a mistake, you have to let Jake finish his lap. So kudos to him and kudos to the team. They've clearly put together an amazing car, Andretti. And how great for us to watch their two drivers go head to head and fight for that pole position.
Well, I think if Felipe Drugovich had offered you a chance to get into the finals after Berlin, he'd have bitten your hand off, wouldn't he? And to now be in the fight with his teammate Jake Dennis, whatever happens here for Andretti, they're going to be smiling all the way to the bank with 3 points guaranteed at the end of qualifying here for that team. So then, Jake Dennis makes it through as Dan Tictum makes a mistake on his one and only flying lap in the semi-finals and misses out. Not the first time we've seen some mistakes though for Dennis. Thankfully avoided all of the semis.
Tictum went off. She did an awesome job there. That was such a lap, mate. Well done. Okay, adjust your in-lap as you need. Worst case, that's an Andretti front row.
So encouragement there for Sean McGill. Good news for Jake Dennis. Good news for the Andretti team with both of their cars into the finals and into the fight for pole positions. This is the mistake though which cost Dan Tictum, just locked up going into turn 9.
We saw him do that 3 times now today. In free practice he was really struggling, and that has to be a systems error or something like that inside the car. It can't be normal. He didn't really lock up, he didn't stop the car.
That was good style though.
Yeah, not necessarily the quickest way around a lap though, unfortunately for Dan Tictum.
I mean, he's still going to start 4th, right? Still a great qualifying for Dan Tictum. He's shown once again he has all the speed.
Yeah, he's out of that sort of mid-pack danger zone that we refer to so often in Formula E. But here's how we got to the lineup of the finals then, with both Andretti drivers, Felipe Drugovich and Jake Dennis, who will go up against one another. The second row will be comprised of Mitch Evans and then Dan Tictum alongside. Then next up you'll have the likes of Bernard Cassidy de Vries as well as Pascal Wehrlein. But the finals just a few moments away. Both Andretti drivers who will be going head-to-head against one another. Who, though, will bag those all-important 3 points and pole position here in Sanya? We'll find out very shortly. So then it's an all-Andretti final in round 11. It's Felipe Drugovich versus Jake Dennis, a chance at the first ever pole position for one side of the garage and a first pole since Jakarta last year for Jake Dennis. Incidentally, Jake has started on pole since then, of course, in Sao Paulo, but that was as a legacy of Pascal Wehrlein, who qualified on pole position, getting a 3-place penalty for wheel spinning in the pit lane. Either way, Andretti will now leapfrog Envision for 5th in the team standings after this, because they'll score 3 points whatever happens. But the question is, which side of the garage will be jumping for joy at the end of this one and only flying lap? How would you be playing this, James?
Full send. You want the pole, you want the 3 points.
And what about you, Alvin?
As a driver or as a team?
Well, as whatever you like, you tell me.
From a team point of view, I just want them to have nice, clean qualifying, don't damage the car. You know you're going to be on pole with one of them anyway, so keep the tires in good condition for the race.
Yeah, but I mean, I lived this situation with DS Techeetah several years ago, and with Jev and Antonio Felix da Costa, and you have to let them go out there and battle for it. Otherwise, you're going to damage their own confidence, their morale going into the race later today. And let's not forget, it's not long after this qualifying session for the race, so you have to let them go out there and fight for it. And it's going to be a super exciting moment for us, and probably make Roger Griffiths quite nervous.
We see Google Gemini there says Felipe Drugovich is losing a couple of tenths through turns 8 to 9, so that's the fast right-hander just coming down this back straight here. Must correct that if he's to secure pole position, but that of course depends on what happens on Jake Dennis's lap as well.
This is where we saw Dennis being really tight on the apex of 6 and 7, and just being able to have a great exit out of there all the way down that straight.
Well, this is going to be hugely exciting to see what will happen then as we come out of the final corner for Felipe Drugovich. Across the timing line then for the Brazilian driver, and down into turn 1 does destiny await Drugovich as we go through these first few corners. Low 26s, 26.2s, 26.3s. That's a good benchmark first sector time, but he's a bit deep into turn 4. He's very deep into there. He's going to have to hope that Dennis makes a mistake in a similar fashion in that first sector if he's to close back the deficit that he'll now have as a result of that through the first couple of corners. 26.8, that's miles away. It's about half a second off from what we've seen.
Yeah, he was miles from the apex at turn 4 though. Yeah. And Jake has no idea.
No, absolutely not. He'll just be running his own lap. So through those first few corners we go there for Jake Dennis. Look at that, 4 tenths of a second already in his pocket for the British driver. Through turn 9 goes Felipe Drugovich at 26.3 for Dennis. That's a bit more like it. About half a second the advantage he already holds in that first sector. Drugovich then's just got to drive as clean a lap as he now possibly can through these final couple of corners and just pray and hope that his teammate makes a similar error. But I don't think he's going to be honest with you. He's a little bit deep going into turn 9, but gathers it up for a late apex, and again the advantage still sits at about half a second here.
I think it's going to be a second by the time we get to the end of this lap, Tom.
Yeah, Drugovich over the line at 106.580. This is where we saw Dennis make a mistake last time around though, managed to gather it up all okay this time, learned from his errors. 6 tenths of a second now in his pocket. Out of the final corner we go. Jake Dennis fights for the line and will take pole position by 1 second over his teammate Felipe Drugovich. It is pole for Dennis for the first time since Jakarta last year. 3 points for Andretti. Bring it on. Jake Dennis then on pole position, 3 points for the British driver then. A front row lockout for the Andretti team, and that is a fantastic result for that outfit. Whatever happened, they'll have been delighted, but for Jake Dennis, it's good news especially.
That's a lap of a champion, that is. And you could see Felipe just trying to fight a little bit too hard. He just needed to repeat his lap from earlier, and that was the best he could do. But he tried to take extra lap time, and it just wasn't there for him to take it. And then one mistake leads to another mistake, leads to another mistake. And it was just a small accumulation of errors. And here at turn 11, he was really quite close to getting it.
That's just a bit of experience, isn't it? It's a lot different, deeper into the duels when you're going to have a little bit hotter tires. You just need to be consistent. Don't try to do too much. And clearly there was a bit too much.
I think it's also the excitement of pole position as well, Albert. You know, it's right there. You want to take it. And actually, in Formula E, you just have to repeat that perfect lap. And that's where Jake showed maturity and pure speed.
Wow. Wow. You boys should be so proud of yourselves, no matter what the result of that. You've just stuck it on the front row, both cars.
Brilliant job from Jake Dennis from Andretti. Baby on the way, he's getting married as well. Huge congratulations to the Season 9 World Champion. It just keeps coming up Millhouse, doesn't it, for the Briton, as he now makes his way into Parc Fermé, and we'll be hearing from him once he's presented with the Julius Baer pole position trophy here. Then, as I said, it'll be the second time he started on pole this season after getting pole position to start in Sao Paulo at the start of the year as a result of that penalty for Pascal Wehrlein, but actually it's the first time he's qualified there since Jakarta 2025. There's Sean McGill, his race engineer, and they'll just be going through all of the data and trying to work out a run plan for this afternoon as we head into what is, I'm sure, set to be one of the most chaotic E-Prix and definitely one of the hottest E-Prix that we've had in recent memory.
Well, I can't wait for this turn 1, Tom. We've got a sweeping, fast right-hander at turn 1, going into turn 2, what is turn 11 and 12. I mean, we've had an exciting qualifying, but I can't wait for this race.
No, we've got an offset start-finish line here. First time since Rome in Season 9 we've had that. So drivers actually will line up on the normal sort of starting grid where the finish line is. Then they'll go around, they'll do half a lap essentially as a formation, then line up in the grid proper. And as you say, turn 11 effectively becomes turn 1. Let's hear from Felipe Drugovich.
Great. Okay.
Anyway, mate, it's been a great qualifying. Great qualifying, mate.
Yeah.
I know how you feel now, but good job.
Second front row start for Felipe Drugovich then of the season, and his second successive top 5 starts this year as well. So he'll be pretty pleased with that. And for Roger Griffiths, he'll be writing back to base with all smiles. So Roger Griffiths there sending an email off to Michael saying, hey, look, did you have a look and see what we did?
I think we heard Felipe just then a little bit down, disappointed after his qualifying lap. But what a great experience he's now going to be able to pull from and continue to learn in his rookie season. Let's not forget, he is a rookie. He's just fought for pole position against a champion of Formula E. And he was on the podium last time out in Monaco. So I'm sure he's going to be a little bit disappointed now. He's going to be able to take away a lot of positives from this qualifying session and come back stronger.
Absolutely, and this man here will be taking a lot of positives. Look at that. It's nice to see Jake Dennis happy. He's had an inconsistent couple of seasons ever since he won the championship back in 2023. The results have not been that easy to come by, really, to be honest with you. Won in Diriyah last year, back in 2024, I beg your pardon, and then it wasn't until Sao Paulo at the end of last year, the beginning of season 12, that he then took his most recent victory.
Well, it's always been one car in that team as well. It's always been Jake at the forefront. It's never been his teammate. So it's brilliant to see Felipe pulling the team together as well, bringing those results that we saw in Monaco, getting himself on the podium, and having 2 cars on the front row. That's an amazing achievement.
Absolutely. Well, Jake Dennis then qualifies on pole position. Let's go down and catch up with the Briton here in Sanya.
Well, the man on pole position here in Sanya is Jake Dennis. Jake, it was said in commentary, that was the lap of a champion. You just seemed completely dialed in.
Yeah, it wasn't easy out there, though. It's so hot and humid that it's really difficult to try and keep the tyre alive and keep everything in the window. But, you know, we had 3 really good laps in the 350. The group stage was a bit of a struggle. I only just scraped through with the usual tendencies I'm struggling with at the moment. But I was confident that once I was through into the 350, my issues would kind of disappear, and they did. And then we were the fastest bloke on track, so very happy.
And mate, you were pushing to the absolute limit. We saw that in the semi-final, just a little tap at the wall. Did that have you nervous going into the final?
I just knew I'd brake too late, so that I had quite a clear reference that wasn't feasible against Ticktum. But you know, I had a good lap against Ticktum. I didn't know he made a mistake. So overall, just very happy. And I mean, 1-2 for the team. Like, what an achievement for us. I've never really had this before, and to have Felipe alongside me is pushing me so hard. What a driver, and now we just need to do the business in the race, but we can be very happy with this as a team.
Yeah, you touched on it there, the first ever front row lockout for Andretti, and seeing how far Felipe's come, even in the last few races. Have you been enjoying working with him and helping him sort of get up to speed with FE?
I mean, he's always been quick. He's just obviously made a few rookie errors here and there, but you know, the last 2-3 rounds, he's kind of brought it all together now and showed the pace of what he actually has. You know, he was an F1 reserve driver for a reason, and to be pushing me this hard is good. And both can just focus on the race now and do the job then.
Well, Jake Dennis, a huge congratulations. And now to present the Julius Baer Pole Position Award, please welcome Enrique Buenaventura, Chief Business Affairs Officer for Formula E.
An 8th career pole position for Jake Dennis, a 15th of the team's history for Andretti as well, a first ever front row lockout. So history is made here in Sanya. And delight on, well, both sides of the garage, I'm sure, for that Andretti-powered run down towards a fast and flowing first couple of corners. These are the super slow-mos from Jake Dennis's final lap in that session. Absolutely inch perfect. One of the quickest we've seen so far this weekend. Not quite the fastest, but ultimately there and thereabouts. The mistake from his teammates, Felipe Drugovich, would have just taken the pressure off ever so slightly over the course of that one, but he still kept it pinned and lit up over the course of that lap. I'll be keen to see what his teammate has to say after the end of that session. Either way, those 3 points do now mean that Andretti moves up to 5th in the team standings, leapfrogging ahead of Envision as well, with just 7 races remaining in 2026. Well, let's go down then and catch up with Felipe Drugovich, a second front row start of his Formula E career.
And the man lining up alongside Jake Dennis on the front row here in Sanya, his teammate Felipe Drugovich. Felipe, you were on fire in the quarters, the semis, and just a small mistake in the final got you there. Talk us through that lap.
Yeah, I mean, a small mistake into T1 and T2. And then from there on, I think I was just, kind of, okay, I'm already down. So I tried to go for all or nothing here and did a few mistakes here and there, but it's fine. I think that's what the finals are made for. We go for all or nothing. And all in all, I think we need to be really happy with our performance. I think the mistake in T1 didn't help, obviously, but here we can see, I think, a little bit of understeer, oversteer, and then from there on, I just tried to be a hero or zero. So it's fine. Very happy for the team. I think they really deserve it, and I think this result should go to the team. But now we need to try and capitalize it in the race.
And of course, just to emphasise that, the first ever front row lockout for Andretti. How much does that mean to you, to the team, to come in and now be a part of making that step forward?
Yeah, it means a lot. I think we are doing a great job together. I think me and Jake, we've been blending quite well together, and each one bringing different stuff to the team and different knowledges. And because also we come from different backgrounds and we have different experiences, so that's really cool. And now I think it kind of shows. Obviously in Formula E it's very difficult to do this every weekend, but happy for it.
Well, really pleased for you too. Congratulations, Felipe.
Thank you.
Well, if you haven't watched the World Cup game, then mute your television sets for just a moment. But after they just won 3-0, that's something for Felipe Drugovich to smile about here today, as well as a front row start for the second time in his Formula E career. Andretti taking a first ever front row lockout in the championship as they will line up at the head of the grid for round 11 here this afternoon. Well, that's all from the commentary box. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got more action to come, of course, with that 37 lap E-Prix. It is going to be fast, frantic and hugely exciting to see what will happen. Back down to Nikki and the team.
First sector was half a tenth off Dennis, so it wasn't bad.
Yeah, I don't know. Turn 9 is really, I don't know, so unforgiving with what we've got at the moment.
Did you get it? Yeah. Nice.
Good, huh? For example, you have two and other
Yeah, 10-6. Let me get it right. Yeah, copy at half 10 tonners, 10-6.
Congratulations. Together in there.
handing it. It's a bit weird like that.
Did you get one that way, yeah?
Yeah, I got that one. Let me just get mine.
And everything else in between.
I don't know.
Okay.
C'est ma partie, il y a 1-0 pour Paraguay, mais ils donnent cependant le carton rouge à la dernière minute de la première mi-temps.
Well, it wasn't quite good enough. I think I was missing a little bit of tire temperature at the start of the lap. I was kind of coming alive at the end, but wasn't enough at the beginning. And yeah, shame to miss out on just 400s, but starting P5 is decent and we can definitely race from there. So let's see what we can do in the race.
The feeling was not the same, unfortunately.
Do you know why?
No.
Okay, thank you, Ede.
Most of the race in Formula E, you really want to be starting in that top 8. So if you can get through the group stage, and that's a real positive. For sure, it's true. We are not great on the 350, I would say. Some work to do, but at least we're there.
Well, I got a yellow flag on the second lap, which is, I think, when the tires were best. Yeah, don't know if it would have been enough. Honestly, the feeling hasn't been great all week, or yesterday and today. This morning was a bit better. I thought we did have a chance, but again, felt a bit worse now in qualifying, to be honest. So yeah, just not really having the pace at the moment, to be honest. Struggling with car balance. So yeah, we didn't really deserve to be in the duels, I assume. So that's how it can go sometimes. But the race is long. It's going to be nice and hot. Lots of things to manage, so we can still salvage something in the race.
To be honest, I think us as a team and as a powertrain, to be honest, we've not really had the pace this week. So to even make it was good. Obviously, to lose by 1,000th is quite annoying, but I have a 10-place grid penalty anyway, so the difference between 14th, 13th or 16th doesn't really change much. So we'll try to do something strategic in the race and let's see what happens.
For me, all weekend, basically I don't have any confidence in the car. We tried to find solutions, tried to put all together we have, but it was not enough.
That was the target. I think realistically we could have been a bit further up. The pace all weekend has been strong, but for the race I don't think it matters too much, unless we always want to be on pole and we always want the 3 points.
Yes. Easy, mate.